Hey film fans, welcome to CinePro, your ultimate hub for all movie recaps. From heartwarming classics to the latest blockbusters. The movie noise starts with Joo-hee was driven to the edge by the noise coming from upstairs. So she decided to stick sponge pads on the ceiling in hopes of reducing the disturbance. But just as she was about to finish, the irritating noise once again echoed from above. Joo-hee immediately took out her camcorder to record the sound, planning to use it as evidence when confronting the upstairs neighbor. Yet, in the next second, a strange grinding noise came from the balcony. Suddenly, the phone rang, and she casually placed the camcorder on the table, pointing right toward the balcony. But on the other end of the line, no one spoke. Then, with a loud crash from upstairs, the lights in the house suddenly went out. Just as she was puzzled, the lights quickly returned to normal. Hearing the noise upstairs continue, she could no longer bear it and prepared to go upstairs to argue with them. She had no idea that at that moment, a woman's shadow was on the balcony, and the strange grinding sound rang out once again. And just like that, Joo-hee disappeared. 4 days later, the company noticed Joo-hee had not come to work, so they called the police, who soon contacted her sister Hwang. Because Hwang had been staying at the company dormitory due to long hours of overtime, she had not been in touch with her sister for quite some time. When she returned home, she found a note stuck on the door, reminding them not to make noise inside the house. Soon after, Hwang walked into the apartment and found the living room in complete disarray, and her sister's bedroom a total mess. She was furious at the sight and immediately tried calling her sister, only to find the phone switched off. She recalled how her sister had complained about the constant noise from upstairs, but because Hwang had hearing problems and could not hear anything without a hearing aid, she had never understood Joo-hee's breakdown. She even said that since they had already bought the apartment, they should adapt to it no matter what, which left Joo-hee speechless. Hwang began to suspect her sister's disappearance might be related to the noise, so she went to Joo-hee's workplace to ask her closest colleague, Kuna, about the situation. Kun said that whenever he spoke with Joo-hee on the phone, she would always ask if he could hear strange noises, but he had never heard anything at all. Later, Hwang returned home and found her sister's phone, but it was dead and turned off. This struck her as very strange because her sister usually carried her phone everywhere she went, but now it had been left behind at home. She prepared to charge the phone to see if she could find any clues, but when she bent down to pick up the charging cable from the floor, she unexpectedly noticed a large moldy stain on the ground. Before she could react, a knock came at the door. After asking who it was, she learned the visitor was the resident downstairs in 504, coming to tell her to keep quiet. Although Hwang explained that no one had been home in recent days and the noise could not possibly be from them, the man refused to listen. His eyes were cold, and he threatened that if the noise continued, he would tear her mouth apart. After the man left, Hwang saw a woman with long hair standing motionless at the end of the hallway, which left her terrified, and she immediately shut the door. After the phone was fully charged, Hwang tried to unlock it, but she did not know the correct password. The next day, she went to the security office to ask the guard if he had seen her sister recently. The guard said that some time ago, Joo-hee had come to complain about the noise, but he had not seen her for quite a while. When Hwang mentioned the resident in 504, saying that he was always disturbing them, the guard explained that Jung Kim, the resident of 504, had also been troubled by the noise and asked her to understand. He casually added that because the apartment was number 604, the neighbors would pay extra attention. Just as the guard was about to explain what had happened in 604 before, a woman hurried over to report a foul smell coming from the basement, asking him to check it immediately. When the guard opened the basement door, a wave of stench surged out. He explained that since 10 years ago, some inconsiderate residents had been throwing garbage there, and over time, it piled up to the mess it had become. To stop the residents, the guard said he had locked the basement door, but some still threw garbage inside through the window for convenience. Cleaning it up would cost hundreds of millions of won, and since no one wanted to pay, the matter was left unresolved. A few days later, Hwang quit her job and moved back home so she would have more time to search for her sister. That day also happened to be her birthday. Looking at the table full of kimchi, she could not help but think of her sister. Joo-hee knew Hwang loved kimchi, so every birthday she would make plenty for her. But this year, there was no Joo-hee to share it with. At that moment, Hwang thought of something and decided to try her birthday as the password to unlock her sister's phone. To her surprise, it worked. When she opened it, she found many recordings. She randomly clicked one, but after only 2 seconds, a loud crash rang in her ears. Because she was wearing her hearing aid, she could not tell whether the sound came from upstairs or from the phone. Later, she went back to the bedroom and continued listening. She heard her sister's voice full of complaints and realized how desperate Jui had been at the time. Then she heard what seemed to be another person's voice in the recordings. Though she could never make out what was being said, she felt as though the voice was right beside her. Yet, when she looked around, there was nothing. The next moment, she thought she heard her sister's voice in her ear, frightening her so much that she threw the phone away. Not long after, the doorbell rang again. This time, Zhuang clearly heard her sister's voice outside, repeating the same sentence over and over. Feeling something was wrong, she refused to open the door and instead peered through the peephole. The figure outside had darkened pupils, clearly not Jui. Then the strange grinding sound came again, mixed with piercing noise, tormenting Yuang until she collapsed to the floor. The next second, she suddenly woke from sleep, but she still could not tell if what had just happened was a dream or reality. Soon after, Kithan came to see Zhuang. During their conversation, she learned that he had actually been Jui's boyfriend, and they had secretly been dating for 6 months, but he had not been able to reach her for days. So he came to ask for help. Together they went to the local district office where they learned from the official that months earlier, the woman who lived in apartment 604 had complained about noise and claimed to have seen ghosts. A few days later, a foul smell came from her home, and it was discovered that she had hanged herself. After hearing this, Huang imagined herself eating at home, but the thought that there had once been a hanging corpse in the house instantly sent chills down her spine. After that, Kune followed Huang back home, and this time a large note was stuck on the door once again reminding her to keep quiet inside the house. Zhuang believed it must have been done by Jung Sim downstairs. Soon after, Kune began making missing person flyers for Juhi. Meanwhile, Zhuang received a call from the police asking if she had found anything new. Zhuang reported Jung Sim's threats to the police and insisted that her sister's disappearance must be related to him. But without evidence, the police could not arrest Jung Gim. From the police, she learned that there was a surveillance camera near the apartment, but after checking, they found that her sister had never left the building. Huang believed that since her sister's phone and wallet were still at home and she had never gone out, she must have been hidden inside Jung Sim's apartment. So she begged the police to investigate him more thoroughly, but the police could not rely only on suspicion. Without proof, they had no right to search Jung's home. Not long after, the doorbell rang, and the visitor was none other than Jung Gim. Kune stepped forward to confront him, while Ju hid to watch secretly. When Kune opened the door, Jung Sim saw it was a man and immediately changed his expression, but still glanced inside, clearly aware that Zhuang was home. He then asked them to please stay quiet, and without another word, he turned and left. Back at the door of 504, Jung Gim took out a hidden knife, as if the pressure from the noise had driven him to the brink of madness. Soon after, Zhuang started posting her sister's missing person flyers everywhere and noticed a young boy staring at the basement window. Curious, she crouched down to check as well. The boy soon stood up and left, so Wang used her flashlight to take a closer look. Music. At that moment, Zhong-un, who lived in 804, suddenly appeared behind her. She warned Wang not to spread missing person flyers in the complex because this year there was a redevelopment vote, and the head of the residence committee would never allow any scandals. If the area became tainted with rumors, the redevelopment approval would be in jeopardy, and housing prices would plummet. Back at home, Zhuang stared blankly at her sister's missing person flyer. Then the door lock suddenly clicked open, and to her shock, it was Jui who had been missing for days. Without thinking, Zhuang ran to hug her, but her sister shoved her away and went straight into her bedroom. Zhuang rushed in to ask where she had been all this time, but when she entered, the room was empty. Just as she was confused, she heard a sound from the living room. It turned out to be another nightmare. She went to the kitchen for some water to calm herself, but accidentally saw what looked like a figure on the balcony. Terrified, she wanted to run, but Jung Sim suddenly appeared at her door, repeatedly trying to enter the code. Luckily, the shadow on the balcony had vanished, so she grabbed a kitchen knife and walked onto the balcony without hesitation. After confirming there was nothing there, she looked through the peephole and saw that Jung Sim had already left, finally letting her breathe a sigh of relief. By now, Jung Sim had been completely driven mad by the noise, searching floor by floor for the source. He soon lost patience, shouting angrily in the hallway. As he turned, he suddenly noticed someone staring at him from the upper corner of a door. At that moment, the motion sensor light switched on and he turned to look more closely. He ran while glancing back until he accidentally smashed through glass and fell to his death. The next morning, Zhuang heard police sirens and rushed downstairs only to see that the dead man was Jung Sim. The officer she had spoken to earlier came to her side, and she immediately told him the victim was the resident of 504, asking them to search his home for her sister. But the police explained they had already searched and found nothing unusual, no trace of anyone being hidden. They suspected Wang was imagining things due to stress over her sister's disappearance, and warned her not to accuse others without proof. At that moment, the head of the residence committee also came and told her to stop causing trouble and damaging the community's reputation, or she would regret it. She even claimed that apartment 604 seemed cursed, saying everyone who lived there ended up acting insane and even those above and below were not normal. Kwang did not understand what she meant, so she went to apartment 804 to find Jong-un. Just then, a little girl ran past behind her, and Jung-in explained it was her mischievous daughter. From Jong-un, she learned that the woman who once lived in 704 always accused her of making noise. To get back at her, the woman stood on a chair and banged the ceiling with a frying pan, trying to give her a taste of her own medicine. But the noise disturbed the man living in 604 at the time, and in his rage, he stormed into 704 and attacked the woman with a hammer. When he realized what he had done, he fled, but the woman did not die immediately. In her final moments, she kept pounding on the walls and floor for help, while the sound of grinding teeth kept coming from her mouth. The neighbors all dismissed it as just noise and ignored it. When her body was discovered, the residents, afraid redevelopment approval would fail, all agreed to keep silent. From that day, the man in 604 disappeared and no one knew where he went. Kwang then asked Jong-in, who lived in 704 now, saying strange noises came from there daily. But Jong-un told her the place had been empty ever since the woman's death. Zhuang was stunned. When she got home, she found another note stuck on her door, which shocked her even more. She had always thought it was Jung Sim from 504 who left the notes, but now that Jungim was dead, it meant someone else was behind them. This time, however, the paper was blank. When she tore it down, she found words carved into the door with blood, cursing her to go to hell. The next day, Huang once again posted her sister's missing person flyers around the complex. At the same time, the redevelopment meeting was being held, and the head of the residence committee tried to show her kindness by expressing condolences for Jungim. But as Huang walked through the crowd, she noticed one of her sister's flyers trampled underfoot, and a mix of sorrow and anger burned inside her like a lit fuse, leaving her trembling. She yanked out the microphone from the chairman and shouted that her sister had disappeared mysteriously in this complex, saying she did not care about redevelopment. She only wanted to find her sister. The chairman rushed to silence her, demanding she stop, and they quickly broke into a heated argument until the residents pulled them apart. But Zhu Yang still refused to give up, shouting that her sister must have been hidden somewhere in the complex. At that moment, Kithan arrived, saw the scene, and pulled Zhuang away. He told her that through his investigation, he had found no record of the man from 604 ever leaving on surveillance, which meant he might still be hiding in the complex. Hearing this, Huang suddenly thought of the basement because the stench was so overwhelming that no one had ever searched it. So they gathered their courage and went into the basement, splitting up to search through the piles of garbage. At this moment, Kun searched while filming with his camcorder and unexpectedly discovered a shadow in the corner. He tried hard to calm himself, then took out his phone to confirm again, and saw that the figure lying on the ground was the man from 604. When he tried to approach to check if the man was still alive, a piercing noise suddenly rang in his ears. The next second, the man's head suddenly rolled to Kithan's feet. Meanwhile, Zhuang found nothing and went to meet up with Kuna, but she noticed that something seemed off about him. She wanted to take a closer look, but an unbearable shrieking noise struck her ears. Then she saw Kuna's body twitch suddenly, and she nervously stepped back 2 paces. The next second, Ki-hun rushed at Zhuang and knocked her to the ground. No matter how much she called his name, there was no response. His eyes were now filled with murderous intent, as if he had been possessed. At that moment, Zhuang grabbed a stone nearby and struck Kithun on the head, finally escaping with her life. She quickly climbed up the ladder, but Kuni grabbed her legs from behind. At this critical moment, the head of the residence committee suddenly appeared and saved Huang. When she woke up, she found herself in the property office, her wounds already bandaged, and was shocked to learn that the one who saved her was the head of the residence committee. The head of the residence committee explained that she had happened to pass by the basement, saw Zhuang, and helped her, and that the police had already been called to investigate the basement. Zhuang Zhuang's attitude also began to change, and she soon started talking with the head of the residence committee. She mentioned that in the entire complex so far, she had only seen 2 children. One was the head's son, and the other was Jong-un's daughter from 804. But the head showed an expression of disbelief after hearing this. Realizing the truth, Huang was stunned because she clearly remembered seeing a little girl in Jong-in's home. At that moment, Zhuang received a call from the police. When she arrived at the basement door, she was horrified to learn that Kune was already dead. She told the police that she had once seen an iron door in the basement and suspected her sister might be trapped inside. But the police said they had already searched and found no such door. The police believed that Zhuang's trauma had driven her into a mental breakdown, and they sternly warned her not to enter the basement again. But Zhuang was unwilling to give up any chance, so she went into the basement alone. Inside, she discovered her sister's camcorder. One of the videos showed Jui entering 804, where several vibration machines were set up, clearly revealing that the noise had been created by Zhang-in. The video also captured some eerie and terrifying scenes, showing Zhang, using her mother's tone of voice, speaking to someone. But in the video, aside from Zhang-yin, no one else could be seen. Hearing this, Jui instantly realized how dangerous Jong-un was, but it was already too late to escape. Jung pushed Juhi to the ground and smashed a cup against her head. Now Ju Yong finally understood that the real culprit behind everything was Zhang. She then heard a faint sound and followed it, eventually finding her sister hiding in the corner. Jui was on the verge of death, so Huan quickly carried her away, but Jung was already waiting at the basement exit, with a smile on her face. Jung walked toward them holding a hammer. Yuang quickly shut the iron door and led her sister in another direction, but after circling around, there was no other exit. So she hid her sister first and went to face Zhang-in alone. From Zhang-yin's own mouth, she learned that the woman from 704 had also died at her hands, because the woman from 704 always complained that Jong-un's daughter ran around the house making noise, which infuriated her. So Jong-un let her daughter go play downstairs, but an accident occurred and the delivery truck killed her. She placed all the blame on the woman from 704. Jong-un slowly approached Wang, preparing to kill her. Seeing this, Ju turned and ran, hiding herself in a temporary safe spot. Then the eerie grinding sound returned, along with piercing noise, and unable to endure it, Wang quickly removed her hearing aid, leaving the world silent. But in the next second, Jong-un suddenly appeared in front of her. In the end, Huang was struck on the back by Jong-un's hammer and fell to the ground. Jong-un then sat on top of her, raising the hammer to finish her. But the grinding sound rang out once again. Zhuang seized the chance to escape. As she tried to shut the door, Zhang-yin rushed after her, begging Zhuang to save her life. But Zhuang accidentally looked into the eyes of the woman from 704 and was so terrified she dared not raise her head. In the end, she chose not to save Jong-un and slammed the iron door shut. Just like the woman from 704, Jung-in began pounding the iron door with her hands, trying to draw attention. But it was all in vain, for the other residents would only dismiss it as noise. Finally, Zhuang left the basement with her sister. Days later, a new neighbor who had moved into 704 came with gifts to visit Zhuang. Though a bit puzzled, the new neighbor handed her 2 gifts and she promised that she would be careful not to make noise upstairs. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.